You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com, endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide. You can hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network while on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile app available for your smartphones, smart TVs, and cars. And when you download Stitcher to hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network, you have a chance to win some money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in the App Store. Download it. It's free and just takes a few seconds. Then, during registration, hit the promo code box and enter RCRN to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episode of the shows will be waiting for you in your favorites. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too, always available to you on demand. No syncing. It's Stitcher Smart Radio. Don't forget to enter promo code RCRN when you register at www.stitcher.com/RCRN.
Today's man needs to be whole, more than just providing financial security for their relationships and families. Join us as we explore the social conditioning that has and is systematically disempowering men. By becoming awake and aware, we can reverse that conditioning, especially for the boys. Here are your hosts of the Radical Man Internet TV show, Dr. Grant Crewley, Sensei, and Coach Steve Talk.
Good evening. Welcome to The Radical Man. I'm Sensei Grant Crewley, along with my co-host Steve Toth, and we're looking very forward to a very excellent program tonight on Valentine's Day. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing great. Have a happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Yes, and many of them, too.
Yeah, this is a little strange holiday. You know, I was born in Europe, and we don't have Valentine's Day in Europe, so this is something I had to add to my repertoire.
Oh, is that right, Steve? What do they do anything in Europe along these lines?
No.
Oh. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought the Valentine's Day was sort of like Christmas. It was all the way around the world. I didn't realize that.
This is an American thing. I think it's related to making money.
So that's a perfect lead-in then. So as a man, then. How other than the fact that what you just said, you know, it makes money, what do you feel or think, what have you observed over these years about Valentine's Day? How does that hit you?
Well, like, you know, in Europe, we have Valentine's Day every day. It's not a unique holiday, you know. Loving, being in love, being love is a state of being, not a holiday for me.
Do you find it over in Europe? Is it more? Is that more of a general feeling there than here?
Well, I don't know. You know, I've been here for a long time, so I don't know what's going on in Europe, but my perspective on it here is that, like I said it before, I feel that it's related to making money, like what this country is so good at. Because we get to sell a lot of roses, we get to sell lots of things, and I think a lot of men resist this holiday because they probably don't get it. I think this holiday is more for women, and they kind of expected that you would remember, but I think a lot of men don't.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, at least in my experience, since the first day I started dating, if you don't remember this day, they get pretty mad. You know what I mean? They get
well,
pretty
it's
mad.
it's part of growing up. It's part of the American mindset. It has become part of our DNA, I think, in this country.
So
I don't know.
What you first said, though, as far as being in love or being a lover is a state of mind, a state of being, I agree with you. And now I'm 56 now, and I've been married. I'm in my 9th year of marriage, and the thing that I have noticed once I got up to be, say about the age of 30, is that our lifestyle here, at least in my experience, is so busy doing things, doing meaning like make a living, pay the bills, do all of the chores, raise the kid, whatever, that the actual romance part of life seems sort of dummied down or almost absent. What do you feel there? You're in Colorado. I'm in Georgia. How do you perceive it there in Colorado? Would you say for the people in general?
Well, my experience is that we all go through those periods of falling in love, and that usually lasts anything between 6 months to a year, and that's most people's experiences of what love looks like and feels like. And then we fall out of love and start noticing what's wrong with our partners, and then the whole thing just begins to take a cycle downward, and then it usually ends up 53% of the time in divorce. and what else can I say about that? It's just I don't feel it's the way we really meant to come into this life and to live. Somehow this whole thing has gone sideways, and we really messed it up.
Yeah, I keep coming back to the way a modern lifestyle is, especially in a modern developed country. It just gets so busy, and there's so many agendas, and relating or taking time to relate. I was doing some reading for today's show on looking into archetypes, and I was reading over for the deep masculine, the archetype of the lover, and the man says right at the very beginning, most people, as soon as we say the lover, especially nowadays, we think romance and sex right off the bat. But like this man here says, there are many types of love for the family, for your friends, for God, for life itself. And love is like a deep inner passion to experience life directly at the epicenter through all of our senses. And nowadays, it seems like to me, every time, at least whenever I've spoken to other men, it's strictly romance or sex. And then that gets fairly limited. What do you think? Do you agree with me there?
Well, let me check in with me. I agree to some extent, except that we, at the core, we are love itself, and we all connected to it. I mean, I feel it for myself, and I feel it for others.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing about busyness is the biggest cop-out and the biggest excuse that I have ever heard that human beings are using for getting themselves off the hook in terms of what's important in life. We all have exactly the same time. Matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, time doesn't even exist. There is no such thing as time, and I have proven it over and over again on these shows for the last 9 years, that when we're connected to ourselves and connected to each other, time disappears. The only time shows up when we're in the past or in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So the two biggest excuses people use, I feel, not to move into action about anything: I don't have time and I don't have the money. As far as I'm concerned, both of those are cop-out answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It's where
Well,
victimhood begins and ends. I can't do it. I'm helpless because I don't have any more time, and I can't do it because I don't have the money. So how many times do you think these two excuses have been used today in America for not celebrating, if you're in a relationship, Valentine's Day?
oh, probably hundreds of them. I would assume.
Yeah, I'm too busy. I don't have the time for it. Too, I don't have the money to buy a dozen roses or chocolates or whatever.
Yeah, and actually, when it comes to flowers, all you got to do is be a little inventive and go out and pick your own. You can almost always find flowers for your girl if you're looking for them. Especially if any of you guys, you ever notice when you first fall in love with a girl, you can always find something, somehow, some way to surprise her or to do something nice just because it's brand new. Later, it becomes troublesome, but not in the beginning.
Yeah. Right. When we're still motivated and we're still interested, we're still inspired by the feelings that we have for the other person, it's a piece of cake.
You know, the trick is, like, especially for any of these guys like that have lived, you were married how long, Steve?
Well, I was married twice. First time 13 years.
13.
Second time 7.
Yeah. So they're both a good long stretch. When you're married for a while, or especially for a long time, like a decade or more, the reasons to go and do something beautiful or sweet or surprising for the person you love has to come from a deeper place than just regular romance or sex. Like Steve says, those things literally, the research shows that 6 months to a year, sometimes a year and a half max, and then that winds down, that goes away. So the real true feelings, or real deep connection, either will get fostered and grow, or the relationship will just fall away and disappear. Unless it's like just some kind of a codependent thing one person parasitically living off the other. But how to get to those deeper feelings requires a certain amount of inner maturity, especially I think on the man's side, because a lady's natural nature is to be, and a man's natural nature is to do. And when you're married a long time, sex can get very boring, and it's easy to look for the next conquest. What's your opinion on that subject, Steve? I know you got that European blood in you.
Yeah. Well, I have actually never have cheated on either one of my partners or ex-wives. If you ask them, they would swear that I have, but I haven't. And it's not a concern for me what they believe, because what matters is what I know and what I believe.
Yeah.
For me. So they can certainly have that. And interestingly, both of them have cheated on me.
Is that right?
Yes. Isn't it funny that sometimes as human beings, what we accuse of other people to do to us, we have already done it to them.
Yeah, well, most often that's exactly, once there's accusations made, almost usually it'll be a projection, so the accuser, whoever the accuser is, usually it's because they did that, and then they will project it onto the other person.
Yeah.
I know, because I dated a lady that was just like that. And I was the most loyal person on earth for her, because I worshiped the ground she walked on. And she would always think that I was having affairs. And later on, as I started to wake up, she was actually having multiple affairs. And I finally actually caught her. And I was so loyal, and I never could understand why she would think that. Because back then when I was younger, I didn't understand how projections work. And being so in love with her, it always dumbfounded me. But it's a very common thing. If you're in that situation, gentlemen, and you're being accused all the time, means you should really take a hard look at her. Oh, and vice versa.
Yeah, very good. Projection it is. And also, I feel that, in both of those relationships, I mean, the first one was really, I really fell in love, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing and what it was, and I had 3 kids with my first wife, so that's a special relationship, and we're still good friends. And my second wife, it's kind of interesting. I didn't really like her at first. And she grew on me. It's like, it took me years to really like her and love her. But the relationship was really set up. We were using each other. I was using her for sex, and she was using me for security and money. And we made that kind of a unwritten agreement, and it kind of worked as long as it did, and then it didn't.
Who broke it, you or her?
She did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gambling big time, Sensei, at that time, and she couldn't take it, so she checked out. It's kind of interesting. I'm kind of curious to ask you about that. There are so many people, I feel, because they don't want to go inside. They don't want to turn their attention to who they really are, people are getting addicted to a lot of things, and it affects relationships big time. And I heard some stories, and I experienced some friends that were able to stick it out. Like I had a friend that was alcoholic, and his partner was able to stick it out, and he actually got healed, and the relationship got very strong, partially because she didn't leave him. Now, for so many people, it's so much easier just to move on, because of course the next relationship will be much better idea. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's like the national pastime, and the origin of the problem is what you stated in the first place. It's a lack of understanding oneself, or being able to go inside. It's always very easy to look outside. Just like when people watch the news, for instance, you can run into person after person after person, and they can tell you all about what's going on in the White House, and the weather and the climate and sports, all kinds of things. But if you try to question them about themselves, and inside they draw a complete blank, and they will avoid the issue generally at all costs. And then the addictions is when you don't know yourself, it's like a hole, like a big hole. So
well, it hurts, and we want to avoid it. We want to cover it up.
Yes. So you want to fill that. So so people look for something to fill it up, and if they can find something that seems to be pretty satisfying, they get addicted to it, like sex or a drug that can alter their mental state so they don't feel depressed, or like in your case, you were a gambler, and people get addicted. In my particular case, I never had an addiction except once. I was addicted to a woman a long time ago in my early 30s for a year and a half.
I was too. I was addicted to a woman too for about a year.
Yeah.
Wow, what a trip!
It was quite a trip. Yeah, it was that same lady I mentioned earlier. And then I found her with several men, actually, and that broke my heart. And for over 6 years, I never got involved with anybody again because it hurt me so bad. And it was because I was so addicted to her that it hit me that bad. Whenever you get addicted, you're off balance. Like I'm a martial artist. One of the most important things there is as a martial artist is to be maintain my center, so that I'm not easy to attack. If something attacks me, I'm not easily set off balance. On the other hand, my opponent, if I can get him off balance, leaning one way or the other, he's easy to throw, he's easy to attack, and so forth. When you have an addiction, you're off balance. You're leaning in one particular direction, and then you're very vulnerable to all kinds of things. So the symbolism is to be centered, means to be centered in yourself. And like this, what I was trying to allude to earlier, if you get past that year and a half with your wife or your fiance and you stay together, there's a kind of centered inner depth that will grow between the two of you. That's why it will continue. Without that, it can't. Actual love doesn't get fostered. It'll be what Steve described. one person will be using the one, you use the lady for one thing, she uses you for the other, and there's no real love involved there. It's just a parasitic relationship. And there, you follow me?
Yeah, sure. So what is this thing called love anyway? Let's explore that. What is love?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that something? My wife asked me that same question today as I was getting ready for this show, and I didn't have an answer for her, because when I first met Tammy, she would say to me, do you love me? And of course, you know, women always got asked that, and I said, yeah, of course I love you. That's why I spent, you know, a year chasing her all over Texas. And she says, why do you love me? And I said, I have no answer for that. If I had an answer for that, it wouldn't be love. Because real love doesn't have a reason. So it's, when you see a mother loving her child, or a dad loving his son or daughter, he doesn't love his daughter because she has blonde hair and pretty eyes, or he doesn't love. When you love something, it's truly just. You just love. I believe if you can describe it, I don't believe that is love. How do you think of that, Steve? Do you agree with me?
Well, let's step back for a second. Okay, so this whole thing for me about falling in love with another person is a very interesting phenomenon, because in my experience, I'm not really falling in love with the other person. I'm actually falling in love with me.
I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, and
I can't disagree with it.
Yeah, it just so happens, I think, in time and space when this occurs, and this is it's one of the greatest gifts of the universe when two people meet, and it doesn't even matter what sex they are. Really, it doesn't. Because love is not connected with what sex somebody is. It doesn't care. You know what I mean? But this phenomenon, and we all know what it is, and you're right, it's very difficult to explain what it is, because it's a state of being. And one of the best ways I think I can describe it is when I felt I was in love, I checked out of the matrix. I checked out of everyday living. The only thing that existed for me is the other person and me. I didn't care about my friends. I didn't care about anybody. I only cared about the two relationships, the two people. And it was so strong, especially that one that I was describing to you when I actually ended up putting her on a pedestal. She couldn't do anything wrong for a long time. I was addicted to her, and it was so strong that I felt like a child. I didn't feel like when this happened, I was like 38, 39. I didn't feel like a 39-year-old. I felt like we were playing with each other like a 5-year-old kid. And we had no worries.
There isn't any out there that's out there separate from what's going on in here, right? So when you see the other person you love, and it can be your dog, or it could be a flower or whatever, it's a reflection of your own beauty, of your own totality, and they or it is allowing you to experience that or access that.
Yeah, so then the question is, Sensei, is it true then that we are creating the way the world shows up for us, or is the world exists separately from us, and so which one has the responsibility for our experience? Is the world stands on its own and we just reacting to what's happening, or is it the world shows up the way it shows up because of who we are being in the inside? So we are 100% responsible and accountable for the experience we're having in the world. So if the world is ugly, then I would say there's a lot of ugliness within us because that's what we see. If the world is beautiful, then it shows up as beautiful. Then it's because we are being beautiful, and I may even say that we are being in our love energy when the world shows up beautiful.
Yeah, and what Steve is alluding to, first of all, the factual answer is the world will show up according to the responsibility, or if you want to look at it as a responsibility, it's a reflection of you. So there is no argument to that. That's a fact, period. That's a done deal. So, but that gets real complicated. It's not so
yeah,
easy.
Because there are 7 billion people, and maybe this is an easy way to get closer to it. There are 7 billion people on the planet, and everybody, there are 7 billion versions of what the world is like.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
Yes, but here's the trick. This really is a complicated. And when I'm in my coaching program called Applied Samurai Wisdom, I teach and explain these things in detail. But here's a couple of things to throw at you now that Steve, we've opened up this arena. First of all, you have all the different people, and they're all experiencing the world a little bit differently, but they also experience it sort of the same. Like when 70,000 people go walking down Manhattan, the 70,000 people will still see the same buildings and the Empire State Building and et cetera, et cetera. So that gets into morphogenic fields, and there are like strata, like layers of consciousness, layers of various degrees of consciousness. Most people, 99% of the human population on the planet, their subconscious mind is running everything, and they're running on automatic. The conscious brain is only active 5% of the day, 5%, and it only accounts for 2% of their actual conscious experience. So they, with that degree of consciousness or unconsciousness, they are not really affecting the surround. So they're just going along in the group or collective consciousness. But when people start to become highly conscious, they are living in a different order of reality. So like what Steve says, if people like that can choose, they can actually choose to be real happy. When they're really happy, they see a very happy world. And because it's a reflective universe according to their consciousness, they attract the wonderful and beautiful things to themselves because they're consciously in that vibration. But when you're unconscious, then it's more or less, it's more like you're in reacting to what is presented to you than the other way around. So it's not this is not a easy conversation where you can just say either or. But
no kidding.
The fact
I'm actually listening to you and I'm going, okay, so I had people actually come to me with this. So because people are having their experience, at least when they are awake, I mean during the day, before they go to sleep. And people confuse consciousness. I mean, a lot of people believe that just because they woke up in the morning and they go through their chores and all the stuff that they're doing every day, that they're being conscious.
No, they're completely asleep. Completely asleep.
But it's like people have this illusion that they check in with themselves like, okay, so since I woke up this morning, thank God, I now must be conscious.
No, not at all. Not even means nothing. That's why the subconscious mind, that's why all of the latest and greatest data in neuroscience shows that the subconscious mind is active 97 to 100% of the day. It is a processor of information at over 400 billion bits of information per second, and it is 1 million times more powerful a processor than the conscious brain. The conscious brain is only active 5% of the day. It only processes between 40,000 and 2,000 bits of information a second. And the only information it's processing is on your body, time, and the environment. Your body, time, and the environment. So the subconscious mind, which was programmed primarily from the time you were 3 months of age in your mother's belly to the age of 7, it downloaded everything verbatim. Those are the programs that are running the adults' lives. And those programs were inherited basically from your mom and dad, and whatever TV programs or whatever the child hears or was subjected to has absolutely nothing to do with their current physical adult life.
All the input. And a good proof of this, Doc, or Sensei, is when a child born in China, they will speak Chinese. Not English, because that's what they grow up with. I mean, that's a good example so people can connect this.
Yes,
right?
And if you take the Chinese baby and run them over to America, the baby will grow up and speak American.
Correct. English, yeah.
What I'm describing to you is not a theory. This is all fact. It's a done deal, period. So what you have to do is wrap your mind around it and understand it, and then you can start to use that information to help you wake up and become more conscious. And then when you're a conscious participant in the world, then you literally can create your own world. But until you are conscious of that, you cannot, period. Never will, it never happens. That's why people spend all day and all night. They can read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. That's one tiny part of the truth. Thinking is only this much. The actual, if you want to see the actual data, pull up Greg Braden and watch the latest data on that. Actually, to actually create the world you want, you first have to be conscious, and then the generator for it is actually the human heart. And that's another whole conversation. But the brain by itself, it will not create or do anything. It's the brain is only like a little computer. The heart is the power center. It's the actual power center. But first,
so would you
you
say
must
the heart
become conscious.
is the heart is the new brain?
Yeah, the heart actually is the most important. It's the most important of everything. And the latest data is suggesting that when we die, you leave through your heart. The spirit, everything is in the heart, and just the electromagnetic field alone of the heart is so many times stronger than the brain. Brain is actually very, very weak, and of course the brain is not consciousness. Always remember that the brain is not consciousness. Consciousness uses the brain, but if you destroy a brain, consciousness remains.
Right.
The brain. Always remember that. It's very important to understand that. But the heart is the key. It's the key. But if you're not conscious, you can't use that. You can't affect that. Conscious being awake and aware is number one on the charts.
So would you say then consciousness is really our ability to be open, and maybe it is, somewhere in the seventh chakra, which is the top of our head, is our ability to be open to the universe, to be one with that energy. Is that what we're talking about?
Consciousness is the ground of being. So I want you to think of consciousness like a giant ocean, a huge giant ocean, and then planets. Let's say planets and like the Earth and people and that are like fish and coral and things, and they live in the giant sea. So the whole universe and everything there is consciousness, and then it's the consciousness is prior to, it's ahead of the manifestation of something you can see or understand with your senses, including our body and everything else. So consciousness is the ground of being, undifferentiated. It's awake, it's fully aware, and consciousness is not relegated to just to us. We're like little focal points in a giant sea, living sea of consciousness. That's why consciousness can watch your thoughts come and go. Consciousness can watch your emotions come and go. It can watch your body grow, and it can watch your body rot and die. But nothing touches consciousness at all. It never born, never die, nothing. So consciousness is something very, very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, but then let's talk about why is it that a lot of people are unable to access it if we're all in this ocean of energy and oneness. Why is it that so many people are disconnected from it?
It's a real easy answer. It's the human dilemma for consciousness is our brain is able to project into a imagined future, and it can remember going backward into the past. And as soon as you have that, the idea of a future and a past, the present moment, the future and the past, that creates an ego. That creates like an identity. We are, I am Grant Crewley, and I'm a sensei because I did 40 years of martial art, and I'm this because I did that, and I have a degree because so the past.
Okay, so hang on for a minute. All right,
Okay.
so kids don't do that. 4-year-olds don't do that, and animals don't do that. So
Right.
are they more conscious than us?
They, in terms of, like say an animal, like my dog Sam, for instance, lives in the present moment.
Hmm. Like my
In
cat.
terms,
She doesn't
yeah.
care about the past or the future.
so they live in the present moment, and
Pet me.
So
Pet me now.
yes. So from that point, they are far more conscious than me, than us in one way. The only thing is they're unconscious in that they, consciousness that you and I are talking about has to be conscious of itself. So a tree or a rock or a dog, a cat, a cricket, they are in the present moment fully and perfectly, but they don't know that they are. Because they don't know that they don't know that they know, that's something different. It's a level below. So a fully conscious,
Wow.
like say a Buddha or a great Zen master or someone, he becomes fully conscious. He lives just in the present moment, but he knows that he's in the present moment fully, and that's the difference.
Mhm.
But you see, the human dilemmas. You can always jump to the future. You can always go to the past. So in order to be able to actually live fully in the present moment consciously takes a great deal of mental focus, and nothing in human society helps that, especially in modern society. Now, all of the conditioning and because the subconscious mind was programmed when we were a child, our parents weren't really conscious, and then their parents weren't really conscious, and their parents. So the subconscious mind is actually going backwards. It's not going forwards, and it's not current. It's never current. The world you and I are living in right now is very different from 40 or 50 years ago when we were little tiny infants and our parents were growing up. So it's always way off. So human beings to become fully conscious is not easy at all. And then nowadays with modern media, everything is designed to manipulate the subconscious mind to make real damn sure you never wake up. They don't want you to wake up. So everything is designed around fear and worry. And it's a very tough engine to beat. It takes effort. And
Mm-hmm.
I always get a big charge out of us in the West. People say, "I'm going to be conscious. I'm going to be conscious." Has anyone, or Steve, have you ever looked into what it takes a Zen priest or a Zen monk, what kind of effort they do for 10, 20, and 30 years? They sleep only 4 hours a day. And one day, if you want, I will literally go into detail what they actually do just to try to become fully conscious. It's extremely hard to become fully conscious. Extremely hard, especially in today's world.
Yeah,
The
I know
more
about that.
complex your life, the harder it is. The more
Yeah.
complex it is, the harder it is.
And who is this they that you were referring to?
Who is the who?
That's exactly what I'm asking. You were referring to, they want to make sure that we don't wake up. Who's they?
whoever the social, the people with the money that decides the way in which they want to move the society and the country, and the way whoever they want to make the world. And there is just reams and reams and reams and reams of data on that stuff. You can spend the rest of your life looking into all of it. So I don't have any kind of names for it, but whoever it is that decides or has enough money to be able to make these decisions. I found, if you ever want them, I've got page after page of the quotes from big political figures that saying out and out, right out, how they want to manipulate the society, make sure that the United States populace cannot make decisions on their own anymore, will be utterly unable to think, et cetera, et cetera. I mean,
yeah. Well, no. This is nothing new.
No,
Sensei. I mean, the Germans have done it, the Russians have done it, and now we're doing it.
Yeah. So, but it was to answer your question. Why can't they get conscious? It's because it's very methodology.
And I think what my message would be to whoever they are is that if you look at history, like the Germans did it, the Russians did it, and now we're doing it, it always ends up in failure. Because I don't think you can manipulate people forever. Sooner or later, in the case of, the Germans, it wasn't that long, just a couple of decades. In terms of the Russians, I mean, they did their thing for 70, 80 years. And we'll see how long we can do ours. But and the Romans have done it, right? I mean, we can look in history. This is all.
It's always been the same. Yes.
It's always been the same. It's always about power and control and and money.
The whole reason I built there are very few people who want to be real martial artists, to actually spend the time. And there are very few people who want to be a Zen monk or go through those kind of austerities like I have and so forth. So I made Applied Samurai Wisdom, which is my online coaching program. And what I did was I have extrapolated from those kinds of methodologies things that are doable for the average man or woman in today's society right now who want to be awake and aware, or want to be more a master of themselves and not always at the affect of the corporation or the people or the agendas or whatever. And that's what I do. I've selected a number of simple methodologies that will help people break the continuous stream that keeps them unconscious. And when we punch a couple of holes in that stream, they find themselves. And the way I do that is it's a Zen-oriented approach. I'm going to help them find themselves where they are through their body. And from that basis, then I expound on that as like a code of life and various things that will give them a sense of real control. And then from there, we can build all kinds of understanding in consciousness, health, the ability to manipulate the surround and so forth, but from a place of inner peace. So, so far, I'm waiting to see. I'm really hoping that I can get some dedicated people that would really like to learn. But I'm telling you, people have to have some kind of methodology. Otherwise, the way the world is designed right now, to try to become conscious, most of them, 99% of them, are just playing games and fooling themselves. They're not achieving it. They don't know how. You have to have a methodology.
Yeah, got it. So if you want people to check this out, where would you like to send our viewers?
Well, you just go to Applied Samurai, www.appliedsamuraiwisdom.com, or right here on the Radical Man, just scroll down and you'll see, it'll say my online coaching program. But I really recommend that you check it out. If you're serious and you don't want to live, if you don't want to go through another year feeling the way you did last year and the year before that, if you really want to make some kind of a change, I know how to do that for you. I've lived it. I've lived it for 40 years, and I know how to do that, and I've made it very, very simple. And I'm the way I set that thing up, you have access to me directly. So I hope you'll check it out. If you're sick and tired of the way things have been and you really want to change, give me a try. I think you'll be quite surprised at the results.
Yeah, great, Sensei. And you said the magic word. People really have to be sick and tired. Actually, I'm going to go a step further. They have to be disgusted with themselves before people will actually be motivated and inspired to do something different. I mean, that's just my experience in most cases. There are always, of course, exceptions, but in most cases, and we talked about this before, that it's either a 2x4 that makes people wake up, and what's a 2x4? Well, it's a divorce. You get fired. Like, I'm having some emotions come up right now because I had to terminate somebody on my cable television show yesterday, and it's still making me sad because it's not something I wanted to do, but I had to do it because it wasn't working anymore. And it's just one of those things that it's not a pleasant thing to do, but sometimes we have to do unpleasant things, unfortunately, in order to make things better. so hopefully that the fact that I had to terminate this person, this is one of those 2x4s, and in this case I'm applying it, but it's kind of coming true to me, and it's coming to me from the universe that this is something I have to do for the show. I cannot close my eyes anymore to what doesn't work. I had to act.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully this will end up to be a really good thing for her, because this might wake her up, or it may not.
Yeah.
But that's just what I experienced, Sensei, is that people react to these 2x4s, and it awakes them. It wakes them up from their deep sleep, or they have to get so sick and disgusted with themselves, or their addictions, that they will move into